Over 15 years, 92% of professional fund managers fail to beat a basic S&P 500 index fund. 92%. These are not random people trading from a couch. These are professionals with research teams, terminals, data access, and years of training. So the real question is not whether beating the market sounds possible. The real question is why so many ordinary investors believe they can do consistently what most professionals fail to do. Stock picking is seductive because it feels like skill. It feels active. It feels intelligent. You choose, you predict, you react, you win. At least that is the fantasy, and modern trading platforms are designed to amplify that feeling. Little bursts of dopamine every time something changes, but there is a difference between an activity that feels smart and a strategy that produces better long-term results. Today, we separate the emotion from the math. No tribal investing takes, no fake certainty. No, this stock will explode, nonsense. Just data, structure, incentives, and the honest answer to a simple question. If your goal is to build wealth, should you buy the market or try to outsmart it? And if there is a place for stock picking at all, where exactly does it belong? Hey, I'm Kira. By the end of this video, you will understand what an index fund actually is, why the data favors it so strongly, why most stock picking arguments collapse under scrutiny, and the one situation where owning individual stocks can make sense. Honest answer only. Let's go. An index fund is simple. It buys all the stocks inside an index, like the S&P 500. That means when you buy one share of an S&P 500 index fund, you instantly own a tiny piece of hundreds of major companies at once. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and the rest of the index behind them. You are not betting on one company to be right. You are buying broad exposure to the market itself. That is the core appeal. Instant diversification without requiring you to analyze 500 businesses one by one. And then there is the fee advantage. The expense ratio on a broad index fund is often tiny, around 0.03% to 0.2% per year. That sounds almost irrelevant, which is exactly why people underestimate it. Active funds look similar at first glance, 0.5%, 1%. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But over decades, tiny percentages stop being tiny. Fees compound too. And when they compound against you, they quietly eat a stunning amount of wealth without ever feeling dramatic in the moment. Imagine a $100,000 portfolio held for 30 years. The difference between a very low-cost index fund and a much more expensive active strategy can easily cost you well over $100,000 in lost value. Not because the manager made terrible picks. Not because the market collapsed. Just fees. That is what makes this so brutal. You can lose enormous amounts of money in investing without making one dramatic mistake. Sometimes you just choose an expensive structure and let time do the damage for you. This is the part many people resist emotionally. An index fund does not try to beat the market. It simply becomes the market. And that sounds boring until you realize what the alternative requires. To beat the market, you need to consistently identify mispriced assets faster and more accurately than millions of other investors. That is a much harder game than most people admit. Historically, owning the market has beaten trying to outsmart the market on a long enough timeline. Boring wins more often than brilliance performs. Now, to be fair, the case for stock picking is not imaginary. Some people do beat the market. Warren Buffett is real. Peter Lynch is real. A few exceptional investors have produced extraordinary results for long periods. So the serious question is not whether stock picking can work. It can. The serious question is how often it works, for whom it works, and whether the average person has the time, skill, temperament, and informational edge required to do it well. This is where survivorship bias enters the story. You hear about the winners because winners become stories. They become interviews, books, documentaries, fan threads, legends. What you do not hear about are the thousands of investors who felt just as confident, used the same language, believed they saw hidden value, and then quietly underperformed or lost money. The market is full of failed profits no one remembers. If you only study the survivors, you end up mistaking rarity for repeatability, and that is one of the most dangerous mistakes in investing. There is also the information problem. When a stock idea reaches you through a headline, a YouTube clip, a Reddit thread, or a friend who sounds very confident, that idea is almost never early. It has already passed through markets full of professionals, institutional desks, and systems reacting in fractions of a second. Retail investors love the feeling of discovery. What they often discover is that they are late. That said, individual stocks are not forbidden. They just need to be placed in the right role. If you have deep expertise in a sector, real time to research, emotional discipline, and you treat stock picks as a minority position, then yes, individual stocks can make sense. But as a satellite, not as the sun. Maybe 10% of the portfolio. A calculated bet, not a core identity. Index funds should be the main character. Stock picks are the side character with interesting lore. Do not build the whole plot around the side character. Now let's talk about the mistakes beginners make. The first is trying to time the market. I'll invest when it drops, sounds smart until the drop happens and fear replaces confidence. The market fell hard in 2020. Many people did not buy, they panicked. Then the rebound happened without them. Waiting for the perfect entry usually turns into permanent hesitation. Time in the market beats timing the market because human emotions are terrible at executing perfect plans under pressure. The second mistake is buying individual stocks too early because it feels more exciting than buying an index fund. And yes, it is more exciting. So is gambling. Excitement is not evidence of quality. The most effective wealth-building strategies often feel almost disappointingly boring. That is because they are designed to compound, not entertain. If you need your portfolio to feel thrilling every week, you are probably asking it to do the wrong job. The third mistake is ignoring the container. An index fund inside a Roth IRA or another tax-advantaged account is not the same as that exact fund in a normal taxable account. Same fund, same market exposure, very different long-term outcome. Taxes matter, account structure matters. The wrapper changes the result. A lot of beginner investing advice focuses only on what to buy. Smarter advice also asks where to hold it. Because the investment and the container work together. So here is your move this week. If you do not have an investment account, open one. Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, whatever solid platform fits your situation. Then search for a broad S&P 500 index fund. Look at the expense ratio. Look at the 10-year and 20-year returns. Just look. You do not need to become an expert tonight. You need to become familiar with what boring excellence actually looks like. Here is the honest truth. Most investors do not need more cleverness. They need better defaults. Low fees matter, diversification matters, behavior matters, taxes matter, and for the overwhelming majority of people, index funds solve more problems than stock picking does. Individual stocks can exist at the edge of the portfolio, but they should earn that place. The core should stay simple, broad, and durable. That is not the exciting answer. It is the useful one. Diversification is built in. Stock picking can make sense, but only with real expertise and only as a small part of the portfolio. And the container matters as much as the investment itself. That is the full picture. Subscribe if this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.